everybody, it's Laura from Omtara. I'm so glad you're here. So today I am going to be showing you how to modify lengths for macrame bracelets. So last Tuesday, we met and I showed you how to use different clasps for the back of bracelets. So let me grab that right here. And I'll be showing you a little bit. This was what I showed last Tuesday. And I finished it with a pearl and dangles. Oh, there's my sister, hi Lynn. Today what I want to show you is I want to answer a question because this came up when I was on Jewel School or JTV Extra. How do you take the basics that you know about macrame bracelets and modify them so that you can create wrap bracelets, you can create necklaces, things like that. So what I have on right now is I have on a macrame necklace. It's about 24 inches long, I would say, and I can use it either as a wrap bracelet or I can use it as a necklace. So I'm going to just show that up again and get a little closer. So last Tuesday, if you missed it, it's down on my Facebook page. I talked about how to make a clasp. Let me take this off. Using a button, bead, or dangles. And this one, oh gosh, of course, I made this loop a little tight there. So this one has the loop, and we also have the button, and I added the dangles. So what we talked about last time was using these dangles as the front of a piece of a necklace. So I have that here. Also, if I decided to wear this as a wrap bracelet, I would have those dangles as well. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to show you how do you take the measurements that you know how to create a macrame bracelet like this, just a single one. How do you take that same information and turn it into something like this? This necklace or wrap bracelet is exactly the same macrame technique as this bracelet. Same thing, same exact one. All you have to know is how to change or modify the tutorial or the technique so that you can get enough leather to make something longer. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. And I made some little cheat sheets and I'll put them in front of the camera when I turn the camera around. This is another piece, and I'll show them all when they're closer up when I turn the camera around too. This one is a wrap bracelet. It could also be used as a necklace, and instead of using a button as a clasp or a bead as a clasp, I use just the dangles as a clasp. So this one is again the same exact technique for macrame bracelets, but I just used a longer piece of leather and more beads. One of the things that I do oftentimes, because I teach this class in person very often, I end up with ends of my pearls, and I end up with lots of extras. So this one is just what I call bead soup, and this is some of the extra beads, some peaches, some pinks, some gray ones that I had left over, and I just save them, and then I just do a mixed random piece. So you can think about doing that one too. This one is the same, the brown one. Is again some smaller beads and then some rice pearls. Sometimes I'll save out these. I'll get some strands that have larger rice pearls. Like this one's really kind of an odd size and shape. I'll save them out, and so I'll use them when I'm doing more of a random piece like this. So it's just a little idea. Okay, so I think I'll just start. Oh, I wanted to just, before we do that, before I switch the camera around, I want to show you, if you don't follow me on Instagram, oh, this one of course is backwards, I'll have to wait till I switch it around, but I do a word of the week, and this week's word is whimsy. So what I like to do is when I pull a word of the week, I like to just keep that word in mind throughout the whole week and just see how whimsy shows up. So who knows? It's very intriguing and exciting to have that word in my mind throughout the week, because it's quite surprising how it shows up. So I'm just putting that out to you. And also I just wanted to share with you, for those of you that might not have my book, I did a little announcement in my Facebook page, but the macrame bracelets tutorial is in my first book, Earth and Elegance Volume 1. It's also in my stores, both of my stores, Omtara and Omtara Bead. So you can just put those into Google and you'll end up at my store. I have just the tutorial available, and I also have the book that has a lot more leather projects there. So you can find that macrame tutorial in there as well, and I put the links on my Facebook page so you can go back and check that out. So let's get ready. Let's go. I'm going to talk about macrame, just the basics. Those of you who already know this, just bear with me. But when I think of macrame, I like to talk about just the way that I see it. So macrame, let me take this. I'll start here. If I were just going to tie a knot, like an overhand knot, I would bring my two cords together, cross and tuck, and pull. So it ends up making, this is all curled up, what I call your tie your shoe knot, or just a small little pretzel knot like that. That's because both of the cord ends are equally involved in creating the knot. So you end up with what we know as an overhand knot. With macrame, the difference is that the one part, or one half of the cord is stationary, and the other half of the cord is doing the knotting. So I call the stationary part of the cord the core, and I call the one that's doing all the knotting the worker, because that one is doing all the work. So I'm going to talk about the ratio when you're measuring for your leather. How much leather do you allow for the core? How much do you allow for the worker? So I'm going to turn around, and I have a little cheat sheets on my clipboard, and I'll show you. Okay, here we go. I'm going to switch you around, and then there's my little note. Smile, it's beating time. And then I'm going to pull that down just so you can kind of get to my workspace. Okay, here we go. So there's our bracelet. This is the one that I talked about. This is one of my favorite bracelets, and you can see that over time, over the years that I've worn it, I just wore it to death. So the bead popped off, and then they just started falling off. But this is actually a really good example, if I can take it out. Sometimes when leather is, you've been wearing it a long time. I'm just going to bring this up really close. You can see that this longer piece is the knot, and it's knotted around this stationary piece, which I call the core. And if I pull that out, hopefully that knot will come out. Sorry that it's old and crusty, but at least you can see there is the worker. This one's doing all the work. This one was creating the knots, and this piece here, oops, is what I call the core, and I like to put the beads on the core. So and so what I ended up doing, the difference between this piece here and this is, you can see the core is much longer, and the worker has to be much longer too to be able to tie all those knots. So I'm going to just talk about how do you take the measurement for a simple bracelet like this and modify it so that you can create something much longer. So here we go. So let's start at the beginning. I'm going to move these out of the way. Oop, good. I'm going to fix that one. So here we go. We've got my clipboard, and most of you know that I create macrame on a clipboard. There's some really wonderful tools out there, Naughty Board and some other macrame boards that are great. This is when I teach people macrame, I'm usually teaching up to 20 people or more. So I just, for cost effectiveness, clipboards are just so easy. So I clip at the top and I clip at the bottom with a binder clip. Just here you can see. And there's my other cheat sheet hiding under there. So when we're talking about macrame, the core is one length, and then the worker has to be 3 times that length. So whatever I decide my core length is going to be, my worker has to be 3 times that. So when we're talking about a regular macrame bracelet, I allow 1 foot for the core, and I'm just going to measure that over, and then I allow 3 feet for the worker. And so that gives me enough material to put my beads on, and also enough material to do the knotting. And the way that I come up with what the core amount is I'll show you on my little cheat sheet next, but hopefully this will make sense. I allow the amount I need to get around my wrist, which is about 7 inches, I'll just say, and then I allow more inches for knotting. So just because I like to make it easy on myself, I take 7 and I give myself 5 inches for knotting. So that gives me 1 foot. So I have to allow 1 foot of core for a single bracelet. Then, if that's my core, I have to allow 3 times that for my worker. So I have to allow 3 feet for my worker. And let me get my little formula out for you. Your core length is your desired finish length plus 5 to 7 extra inches. So my core length for a single bracelet would be 7. My desired length would be 7 plus 5 is 12. So I allowed that to be my core. Say I want to create a bracelet that is 15 inches long or 14 inches long. I'm going to have to change up my core length. So here we go again. Your core length is, I'm going to call it A. This is my math brain, so if it doesn't make sense, please ask. And I'm going to figure out that. So if I want to make my bracelet 2 feet long, I would put it there. Then I'd say 2 feet times 3 is my B length, my worker length. And then I add them together. So I would have 2, 6, because 2 times 3 is 6. And then the amount of leather that I'm going to cut is 2 plus 6. So I'd have to cut 8 feet. And I hope that makes sense. Your core length, again, is your desired finished length plus 5 to 7 inches. Here's my 1 foot. Then I have my 3 feet. And so you need 3 feet of cord to really be able to create the knots around 1 foot of leather. When you're working with smaller beads for this bracelet, I had to actually allow myself a little bit more of a worker length because the beads were a little bit closer together than my regular pearl length. So I allowed quite a bit more. So I multiplied it by 3 and then added some extra. So I'm going to also show you a little cheap way to do it. Let me grab this big piece of cord. And so one of the cheater ways to do it, if the whole math thing and having to multiply stuff is just too much work, then what you can do is, this is one of the ways that I like to do it, is I just wrap around my wrist as many times as I want to go. Say I want to make a 4 wrap bracelet. I think I've got it around 4 times, maybe. Yeah, I've got it around 4 times. I'm going to take that off. I'm going to add about 5 inches. And then this whole bunch here is my core. What I would do is I would measure that, and then I would give myself 3 times that for my worker. And when I say that, I'm not cutting it here, I'm keeping it attached because I want to have my worker and my core attached. I'm going to show you what I do to create a loop. So I'm going to go back to my 4 foot piece. I'm hoping that this is working on the video. So I'm going to measure out, use my bead mat to measure about 1 foot, and I'm going to fold it right at that foot mark. So I have 1 foot, and then I have the rest of my 3 feet here, or thereabouts. This is about 4 feet length. And what I'm going to do is hold it at the fold, so I've got my short tail and then my long tail keeps going. And then I'm going to create an overhand loop, what I call an overhand loop. So I've got my fold, my core, the amount that I'm leaving for the core, allowing for the core is here. The amount that I have for my worker is here. They're attached because they're essentially the same piece of cord. And I've folded them at my 1 foot mark. And I'm just going to create what I call an overhand loop. So I'm going to cross. This gets confusing for people because it feels like there's the tails and there's the fold and it just doesn't make sense, but it's just an overhand knot. So I'm crossing the 2 right where my thumb is. You can see that's where they're crossing, and then I'm going to tuck this fold right through the loop just like that and pull. So there's my clasp loop. Now this clasp I will fit, or make this loop I will make fit to whatever I'm using as my clasp. And I talked about this in the last video. I'm going to bring it up. So you can see that the cords are kind of crossing over here like that. I just like to fiddle them around until they're really going through the knot parallel to each other. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of twisting and twirling until both cords sit nice and flat like that. And the reason I do that is because I like the look of the neater knot, but also because if there's a twist over time, all the leather will settle, and it will, the loop will get bigger, or the space after the knot will get bigger. So I really like to make sure that knot is nice and smooth before. And of course I'm fitting this loop to whatever I'm going to be using as my clasp. Generally it's about half an inch for me, because that's the size of the pieces that I work with. So now we've got our core, and I'll show you how I clip them to my board. I've got my, oops, get under there. I've got my, and if I measured correctly, yeah, I did. I clip the bottom. I clip the tail of the core to the bottom, and so that this whole setup, my core is stationary, my knots, my worker can move. My core is the short piece, my worker is the long piece. I'm going to show you how to do that with a much longer piece of cord. So, oops, I just knocked myself. Here, let me get myself back. There. So I've got I'm going to switch, no, I think I'll be okay. I'm going to just pretend that this is the piece that I want to make a wrap bracelet that I wrapped around. I want it to be about 2 feet. I'm going to add an extra about 5 inches. There's my fold. I've already pre-cut my length so that the rest of this leather is 3 times what my core is. My camera angle is just so small. And there's my core. Keeps going. Yeah. And there's the rest of my worker. Let's get him over there. So again, I'm going to show you how to do that loop. Put the fold. The tails are all over here. We don't even have to worry about them. And I'm going to slide about 4 inches away, cross one over the other, take the loop, tuck the fold through the loop and pull. And then I do some adjusting. Kind of moving things around till everything feels good. And then I just check my knot to make sure that nobody's twisted. I do a double check to make sure whatever my clasp is going to be, I can fit it. Now that would be too small for that button, so if I were going to be using a button of this size, I would adjust my loop to fit it. Once I like it, I'm all tucked down. And again, clip underneath. And then if I have a core, let me find my core. You can see my core is way too long for this clipboard. That's fine. I can work and knotting as I go, and then when I run out of working room on my clipboard, I can just reclip and slide up as I wish, and then reclip it down at the bottom. So I hope that's helpful. So what I'm working with is 1.5 millimeter cord. So let me grab a strand of pearls and I'll show you. So these are just some natural colored pearls. These pearls have, I think I can show you, have a 2 millimeter hole right in there. And what I would use for these is 0.5 millimeter smaller. So this is a 2 millimeter hole. This is 1.5 millimeter cord. And that would be a good match. Now, when we were talking about measurements and ratios with leather, when you're working with 1.5 millimeter cord, I was saying the ratio of the core, which is the center length that your beads are going to run on and you're going to knot around, that is 1, and your worker, the knotting cord, is 3 times the length of that, of whatever you decide for the core. So when you're working with thicker leather, like 2 millimeter leather, generally the rule is if you're working with thicker leather or more smaller beads or more beads, you want to give yourself more worker. So if you're working with 2 millimeter leather that's thicker and you're going to be doing quite a lot of knots, it will take up more leather per knot. So I would allow your worker, if you're working with thicker leather or you're working with smaller beads, to be somewhere between 3 and 4 times the length. So I just want to make sure. Oh, thank you, Susan. Susan just said she brought her macrame, my macrame bracelet kit. Thank you. I'm so grateful. Yeah, the macrame bracelet kit is a great way to start because in that kit you get the tutorial, of course, and you get enough materials and cord to make 3 simple bracelets like this. You get gemstones and pearls, and you also get enough leather to make 3 single bracelets and then 1 wrap bracelet. And again, in that tutorial I tell you how to modify, like I'm doing on the video today, the length. So let me know if anybody has questions about this. I know because it's such a small screen and I'm working with lots and lots of cords, I just want to make sure you have that, you have the answers to questions you might be having. So I'm going to switch you around and just show you that cheater way of, first of all, I'll show you my macrame formula again for those of you who are starting or just coming on. So the core length we were talking about, which is in a simple macrame bracelet, is, I call it a foot. I allow a foot for my core, and the core is the piece that you knot around and that I put my beads on. And then the worker is the worker length, or the knotting, the cord that's doing all the knotting. And that is 3 times the length of the core. So your core length, again, is your desired finished length, whatever that is. In my single bracelet, it would be around 7. And then I would add 5 to 7 inches extra. For me, if my finished length is 7, I just make it easier on myself and I just say add 5. That gives me a foot. Then I can work from there. That 5 extra inches is so that I can create this knot and any finishing knots that I want. So I have my loop knot, I have my anchoring knot at the end that anchors all the macrame, I have my finishing knot, and then I have extra material so that if I want to make dangles or I want to do some dangle knots, I have enough. So you're going to find, as you start making macrame bracelets, you may find that the core, the 4-foot length is more than you need. I end up cutting off lots of bits at the end. So you may want to change that length so you're not wasting as much leather. But I'm also going to show, I think next week I might show you how to use those bits of leather that you cut off to make earrings, little dangles and things like that, because I save all my cut off bits and I make earrings out of them. So if you are selling your jewelry, then using the little cut off scraps of leather once you've made a bracelet is a great way to have a little extra income, have another offering with leather and pearl, leather and beads. So we've got our core length, and if you are going to modify it from that basic 4-foot length, which is 1 foot for the core and 3 for the worker, if you want to switch it up, then you decide what your core length is, and that again is your desired length plus that extra inches. Make it easier on yourself and round it up to a foot, to a foot or 2 foot or whatever it is. That's what I do. So you fill in the blank. That's your core length. Then to find your worker, you take your core length and you multiply it by 3. So if my core length ends up being 2 feet, I take that 2 feet and multiply it by 3. That's 6 feet. Then I have to add them together, and that would be 8 feet. That's the total length of leather that I would cut to make a 2-foot long piece, a 2-foot long bracelet or necklace. And I'll just remind you again, let me get this out of the way. This necklace that I was wearing is about a 2-foot long necklace. So this, I can wear it as a necklace. I can wear it, I think it comes out to be about a 4 wrap bracelet. So you can modify them. So here's a 2-foot, kind of a good idea, a good example of what a 2-foot piece looks like. And you can wear it as kind of a longer necklace, or you can wrap it. For me, it wraps about 4 times. So I hope that answers any questions. And again, I'll just remind you too, these are all just leftover beads that I had. I had a long strand of single beads, and I had some leftover kind of longer rice pearls that I had collected from my different strands. I saved them out, and I changed them up, and I had some extra potatoes, maybe a button. This was an old Baroque that I had, so I just added them in as my little dangle. So there's the front of my necklace and my pendant there. Or if I like dangles for a bracelet, that's my dangles that are hanging off my bracelet. And I'll just show you this one too again. This is another one. This is a little bit shorter. This is a 3-wrap bracelet. This is about 8-10 inches on me. And rather than having the button or the bead as the clasp, I just use the dangles as a clasp. So all I have to do is pop one of them through and then move it over, pop the other one through, and I've got either a wrap bracelet. I can modify this for different people's wrists. I showed this last Tuesday about how to use dangles to give yourself a little bit more length when you're making beads, making pieces to sell. And then if I wanted to, I could stuff that one in there. And that could be the front of my bracelet too. I mean my necklace or bracelet. And again, these are just what I call the bead soup, all the leftover pearls that I had that were in the more pinky tone from different classes that I've been teaching. So save them out. Even if you end up with five beads on a strand, put it in a little bead soup bag and save them until you get a collection of them. Then you can make a more random style piece. Really pretty. There's peaches and pinks. I sell these in my shop, so if you like more of the pinks, sometimes the pink strands have more of these coppery toned. I don't know if you can even see it, but it translates. Sometimes they have a purple tone, sometimes they're pale, sometimes they have like a copper iridescent, and then I've got some more peach ones too. These gray ones were just some random gray ones that I had, and I popped those in too. So I hope that answered your questions. If you do have any more questions about the math part of it, please ask me, because I know it can feel if the whole adding thing is too complicated, just ask me. And I'm going to flip you around again. I'm going to pull this up again, give you my smile, it's beating time, and see if I've got myself in the video. Oh, here I am. Okay. Well, I'm so glad to see you guys. I'm going to just tie that up. Hi, June. Okay, so I'm just going to see if I can step back. I'm going to pull it down a little bit, and I'm just going to show you, after I showed you that, sorry, I want to get this so that you can see my arm. So I have this long piece, and I'm going to see if I can show this to you in my space here. Oops. So a cheater way to do it is to, I'm going to just say this again, take your piece, wrap it around your wrist as many times as you want. Okay, say I want to make a 5-strander. I wrap it around. I give myself a little bit extra for knots. Then this is my core. I don't even have to measure it. Okay, I just know this length that I wrapped around my wrist as many times as I wanted is my core. So what I can do, I'm going to shorten that just because I know my piece that I have here. If I were working off a spool, you could do this. I'm just going to shorten that up just so I know I have enough for a 4. So if this is my core length, okay, I have to make sure my worker is 3 times as long. So if I'm pulling it off a spool, I'll probably be fine. So this is a cheater, and I can show it to you. So I take my core, I fold it up against the rest of the cord that I have, and I slide it down. So now I have my core, and I have a second one here, right here. So if I just grab where I measure that one, and I drop it, and then I fold that whole piece in half again, and I cut it right here, then I know all of this is my 1 and 3. So all of this is 4 times the original length that I have. So what I would do to find out what my original length was, pretend I cut that, is I would just fold it back up in 4s. So there's my There's my 4 times piece, and then I would just pull out figure out how long one of those quarters is, and that's my core. So that may be too much for your brain. That's how my brain works, but hopefully that's helpful. So anyway, cool. All right, so let me see if anybody has any questions in there. I'm just going to scroll up and scroll down, see if I missed anybody. Oh, yes. So Pam, you had a great question. Do I add for the necklaces too? Absolutely. So instead of wrapping it around my wrist, if I wanted just to take this piece and say, okay, I want my necklace to hit right, let me step back, right here. I want it to hit, maybe I want to hit it right here. That's the length I want my finished piece to be. I'm going to take that. That's my core. I can measure it or not. You really don't have to. I add 5 to 7 inches. I'm going to just say 5. That is my core length. So the amount that I'm going to cut, or I'm going to allow for my worker, is going to be 3 times this length. So I'll figure out what this length is. I'll multiply it by 3, and I'll measure out that 3 times length and then trim it there. So hopefully that makes sense. Hi Eve. Hopefully that is not too confusing. But oh, would you leave the part wrapped around your wrist more loose for using bigger beads? Yeah, you could definitely do that. Joan, what I do, that's a great question. So what I do whenever I'm guesstimating, which is essentially what I'm doing, and you'll know that if you have made projects from my book, the menus or the ingredients list that I always have you cut is always more than I think that you need. So yes, if I were going to be using bigger beads, then I would, I would be generous. And again, what I like to do with all those bits that I cut off, either okay, next time I make something and I use these beads, I really don't need to measure all that I just measured. If I cut 5 inches off, you can not cut 5 inches on your next piece. You can do that, or I save, as I said, I save all my bits for other little earring drops. Oh, so here's some. I'll show you these. These are just a little bit of leather that I had. I did a loop with a crazy wrap bind at the top, and just what I call a barrel knot at the bottom. And this is just extra, some extras, little bits that I had, so I made them into earrings. And I know that there's another, Pam, for example, for an 18-inch necklace, should I add? Yes. So, so the question is, for an 18-inch necklace, if you wanted a finished 18-inch necklace, that 5 to 7 extra inches is for those finishing knots. So let me show those again. So it's more than you probably need. So if I wanted this to be 18 inches, I need to allow that the leather that I need for the loop knot. I also need to allow leather for the anchoring knot, or this finishing knot that I call it an anchoring knot because it anchors all of our macrame together. I also need to allow some leather for this finishing knot. And then I also, if I want dangles, I need to allow for that. So that 5 to 7 extra inches is probably more than you would need, but it's so, once you start trying to tie a knot with just a tiny little bit of cord, it's super frustrating, and beading's supposed to be fun, and so I try to limit the frustration as much as possible. So allow that 5 to 7 inches. You're going to know as you make these pieces more and more, if you need to add the 5, if you need to add the 7, if you're working with more cord, you're going to want more thicker cord. Thicker cord takes up more space when you're knotting it, so you do need to allow that extra. So yeah, so figure out which. I always add 5, but depends on how tight you knot. So I always like to say 5 to 7 inches. And let me see if I have any more questions that I'm missing. Let's see, scroll down some more. Oh, can you show your bracelet? Glenda, I'm not sure. Should I show you this one? These are one. I mean, these are multiples. They're not a wrap. They're all just individuals. So these all took 4 feet. So I allowed that 1 foot for the core that the beads are on, and then I allowed that 3 feet for all the knotting. And again, I do end up cutting off some pieces, and I save those bits. I have a box full of bits that I use for things. So yeah, these are all individual pieces, bracelets. I don't think I have any wrap ones on anymore. These are all the same. So I've got gemstones on this side for some reason, and I have pearls on the other side. So these are some lava beads, a bunch of gemstones and pearls. These are all exactly the same. They're the same bracelet. Okay, same technique, except for the snake one. So yeah, and then these are exactly the same bracelet as this one. I just switched out the type of cord. This is more of a suede gray cord, and then also this is the same. Okay, this is exactly the same. Even though I changed the length, I added a bigger button, I made some dangles, I mixed up the beads, same exact thing. This and this, same. And let me grab this one, same. All the same. Okay. And I will note, I want to say, in the macrame bracelets tutorial, whether you get it in the starter kit, whether you buy the tutorial just outright, you can just do that, or if you get it in my first book, Earth and Elegance Volume 1, that tutorial teaches you 2 types of knots. So it will teach you the spiraling half hitch, and I had a question about this, so I wanted to address it. I think it was Anne. So the first knot that you learn in the tutorial is a spiraling knot. So you are going to notice that the cord does kind of spiral around the beads. And then the second knot is what I call the lark's head knot. And so, and that knot is more of a flat knot or a straight knot. You can see that this cord is all on one side. So if you are making bracelets from the tutorial, don't worry if your very first bracelet that you make, the cord is spiraling around, because it's supposed to. And then that first knot is the first step to learning the lark's head. So so don't worry if you see some spirals. Oh, what's the name of your first book? So yeah, I'm going to show it to you. It's called Earth and Elegance. It's backwards, of course, but it's Earth and Elegance. That's the series that I have for leather, working with leather. So I have 3 books in that series, Earth and Elegance, and my first book is the brown book, and it's volume 1. So that's braiding, knotting, and macrame. So using leather cord to braid, knot, and macrame. So anything else? Let me just check some more comments, make sure I'm not missing anybody's questions. Okay, well, I hope that is helpful. So today, Tuesdays are going to just be tip days. So, and really the videos that I'm doing are in answer to your questions. So if you do have a question, both last week and this week were questions that people asked me, and then also the question that I just addressed about the spiraling. Oh, let me show it to you. So I think you can see this bracelet. See how that cord seems like it's in the wrong place? This is an older one that I've been wearing for a while. You can see that I'm going to pull it around. The cord doesn't stay in the same place. It's kind of moving around. There it is again. It comes back around. That's a spiraling one. These other ones, the cord stays on one side of the bracelet. So that's the difference. And you need to know the first spiraling knot to be able to do the lark's head knot. So that's why I teach it that way. Anyway, so, oh, you're so welcome. I'm so glad you guys are there. Please, in the comments below, or just send me a message or put a post on my Facebook page and just let me know what you're wondering about. It doesn't have to be about leather. Right now, that's what people have been asking me about, so I'm doing the videos on that. Next week, if I don't have a question to address, I'll show you how to do the little earrings, a couple different earrings out of leather scraps, just so you can have them. The holidays are coming up. They're perfect for gift giving. And all of this, the macrame bracelet pieces are great for gift giving, great for if you're doing holiday shows or sales. People will love them. And so let me think of the other thing. Oh, too. The other thing is that on Thursday, I am going to start our beading, I call it Beading 101, Beading 101. And it's going to be based on the college class that I taught here in Santa Barbara for almost 10 years. And I'm excited, so I'm going to start with stringing. And very first day on Thursday, we're going to just go over the stuff. Because if you're new to beading, which I know some of you are, when you walk into a bead store or a craft store and you want to get materials, it can be overwhelming because you know you need stringing wire, and oh my gosh, you go there and there's not just one, but there might be a whole wall of stringing wire. So it can be super overwhelming, and daunting in trying to figure out what to get. So I'm going to just spend a little time the first day talking about the tools, so you know the tools that you'll need. There's lots of wonderful tools out there. There's so many things, but what do you need just to get started? And then you can try this out and see if you like it. And most people that I've met over the years that I've been teaching beading, beading is just awesome. So I'm going to talk about the supplies, the tools, and then I'm pretty sure I'm going to have enough time just to do a little demo of crimping and create a little sun catcher. So just something simple. Again, if you're doing holiday shows coming up, I know it's September, but now's the time to start prepping. I'll show you how to do that. So that's what I have on tap for Thursday. And then as we go through Thursday, I'm going to do some different crimping lessons over the next couple weeks. And then we'll add in wire work and we'll just see how it goes. I'm kind of feeling that one out. And then hopefully if questions come up in Thursday, I'll pop them in the Tuesday tip day. Oh, what's the name of my Facebook page? It's Om Tara. So O-M-T-A-R-A, Om Tara. And this is my logo. I'm going to show you my little logo. Oh, it's backwards, of course, but it has that little flower in the hands. And what time on Thursday? Thanks for asking that. So the Thursday is going to be start about 3 p.m. Pacific time. So and then the Tuesdays are going to be around now, like around 10 in the morning. So I'm trying to even out the time for people. For me, because my studio's here outside, it's my one-car garage. The lighting to do it later in the day on Thursday is just a little bit too difficult with the lighting and the noise, because I live in a very condensed neighborhood and I have neighbors close in, and I live right on the corner, so it gets kind of noisy toward the evening. So hopefully the time and the light and the sound, it all works. I want to see some more questions. Pieces. I think Marguerite, I think you're asking about bracelets. I have just started making pieces again because I've spent so much time developing products, writing my books, doing that. So one of my things to do for myself is to start making jewelry again for me and to sell. So let's message back and forth, and I'll talk to you about getting a piece, I think that's what you're asking me in that question. And Sue, hi. Yes, I do. I sell large hole pearls and I sell large hole gemstones, and I have just a few large hole Indonesian glass beads, which were just super fun and chunky, but unfortunately a lot of the artisans are no longer making them. They're getting to be very, very rare to find. So I do have the glass. I definitely have gemstones and pearls. I carry them all the time, and I work with a pearl farm in China to have the pearls drilled to my specifications. So I have a lot. I love them. So anyway, thank you, Marilyn. She said thank you so much for sharing my knowledge and talent. It's my greatest love. I'm so happy. And thank you so much. I want to say, I usually start my classes, if you've been in my class, you know I say this. I always thank you for being here, because you are why I get to do this. If I were just sitting in my garage without you, I wouldn't be doing this. So I just want to thank you too, because you're why I'm here. Let me just see if I can, okay, let's see. Oh, Valita, hi. Okay, thank you. The colored beads, those are gemstones. So this one, I'll show you. Let me grab it back. This is, and these, I don't have all these stones on my site, but gives you a chance to see. These are all colored gemstones. These are real stones. So, and they're made with, let me grab that one that fell off. Let's see if I can show it to you. So they're made with a 2.5 inch, I mean a 2.5 millimeter hole. So these beads work really well. The gemstones work really well with the 1.5 millimeter leather. They also work really well with 2 millimeter leather. So if you want to make something that's a little bit more hefty, or you find one that you just want to have a couple centered, you know, maybe for a man, something more simple, something more chunky, the gemstones work really well for 2 millimeter leather as well. And Donna, yes, the question, do I always use 1.5 millimeter leather? I do, personally, just because for me, the 2 millimeter, the 1.5 millimeter leather is like a perfect, it's supple, it, for me, it's chunky enough. Now, I do, for macrame, I use 1.5. I find it's just what I like. I like that look the most. But I do use 2 millimeter leather in my new book, which is leather and wire work, and also in my second book, which was leather and stringing. I use 2 millimeter leather for either parts of bracelets, the top end of a necklace. So I do use 2 millimeter thick cord. Okay, let's see. Oh, Mara, can you teach us knotted necklaces? I mean, how to close them without a clasp. Let me think about that. My kit of the month, actually, I'm not wearing it. My, this kit of the month, September, which has 1 day left before I close it, because we're going to be shipping out. I'm teaching a knotted mala. That kit of the month club is a knotted mala necklace. So once I ship out all of those kits that have been, you know, put somebody's name on it, then if I have any left over, I'll have those kits in my shops, and I'll also put the tutorial up in my shop for sale. So I'll let you know. I'll put a little notice when I do that. So oh yeah, so again, Rita, these are those little scrap earrings. So I'll show you a couple different ways to make leather scrap earrings. And again, these are 2 little pearls that I saved out from a batch of pearls that I had, and I made them into necklaces, into earrings. So you can do that too. Anyway, I am going to say bye, and I hope I can see you on Thursday. Tune in. We're going to do beginning beading. And even if you are an experienced beader, what I like to do is, what I've found is that I like to give tips, as you can see. So even, I'd say tune in anyway, because I'm hoping you'll learn something new too. Okay, I'm sending you love, and I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for being with me, and I'll see you Thursday, 3 o'clock. Okay, same place, different time. Take care. Bye.